He revives, expands the Silk Road and trade. I don't need to elaborate that on anymore. The bubonic plague gets spread along those trade routes. I think we've covered that, so we're now kind of linking up with where we had talked about in the Dark Ages. Eventually, Genghis Khan does die of old age, is buried somewhere in Mongolia. People claim some sacred mountain. We're not really sure. It is not an elaborate tomb. It is not the tomb of the first emperor in China with all these jade and gold architecture and rivers of mercury, and it's not like that. It was very humble, or supposed to be very humble, very discreet, nomadic kind of burial. They killed anybody that they saw in the burial procession that might know of where the location of the grave is. So it's kind of a mystery lost to history. After his death, his sons, of which he's got like infinity sons and grandsons, like there's jokes of like 3% of the world's population being related to Genghis Khan. He had that many children. They continued to expand the empire for about 2 generations. By the time you get to his grandsons, it starts to fracture. So he expands the empire far and wide, and then his sons continue to expand it. And they take over China, including Song China, and they take over parts of the Middle East, and they make it all the way to Russia. And then the grandsons start fighting each other. So one of his grandsons will take over China and will kind of adopt Chinese language and Chinese culture and Chinese custom and Chinese religion, and will look and act and behave Chinese. That's going to be Kublai Khan. He's probably the most famous Mongol after Genghis. But then other Mongols in the Middle East will convert to Islam, will intermarry with the elites of the Middle East, and become assimilated into that culture. We'll look at Tamerlane and the Ilkhanate in a second. The Mongols are not civilized city livers building massive amounts of architecture and art. They're nomadic warriors that go from place to place. They hunt, they raise sheep, herd horses, and conquer. The minute they take over these massive civilizations, settle down in cities, and start building these bureaucracies and trade networks and all that stuff, they don't remain Mongol anymore. And part of that's inherent in that process. As a Mongol, you're supposed to ride horses and hunt and herd and move from place to place. The minute you stop doing that, you can't really be a Mongol anymore. You're now the descendant of a Mongol that's becoming civilized and assimilated with the culture and the people that you conquered. See how that connects to one of the questions I gave you at the start of class? Okay, so map-wise, let's check this out. Here's the steppes of Central Asia, those never-ending rolling hills as far as the eye can see. There's not a capital yet. Eventually the capital will be Karakorum. But the nomadic Mongols under Genghis Khan capture northern China, Central Asia. They make it all the way to Kiev and Moscow, and eventually capture Baghdad and rule most of the Middle East. When he dies, the empire continues to expand, but then under his grandsons fracture into 4 kingdoms. You've got the Empire of the Great Khan, which is China. You've got the Khanate of the Golden Horde, which is Central Asia and Eastern Europe. You've got the Khanate of Central Asia. And then you've got the Ilkhanate, which we'll look at more in depth here in a second.